The coaches are in. When you need a timely, transparent friend, tune into the coaches are in. Talking career, business, health, and wealth. You've got a friend now. Into the coaches are in. With authenticity. Come on, let's take a seat and tune in.
All right.
that just always, you just gotta move when you hear that.
Exactly. It gets me going. Yes.
Yes. So we are live today.
Yes, we are.
Monday, October 23rd. We are live in the building. And what is a little bit different about this episode of the Coaches Are In is that we are having our first book club discussion. And we are excited about that.
Yes.
So we're going to jump into that very quickly. But of course, we want to introduce ourselves to you just so you know, we make sure you know who we are. So I'm Dr. Sharita Weatherspoon. I am the creator of The Coaches Are In. I am also a business strategist and alignment coach, and I work with Black women entrepreneurs, helping them to basically redesign their business to support their lifestyle desires so they can live in alignment and experience fulfillment and joy.
All right, who's going next?
That'd be you, honey.
Oh, okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Malika Turner. I'm your confidence coach here on this show, but I also operate the coaches. I operate the Speaker LLC, and we're all about motivation, training, and coaching. So that's what I do, and I'm excited for this evening's show.
Yes. All right. And I am Allison Garrett. I'm your behavioral interventionist. I work with professional women who don't know what has them stuck, and I help them break free without years of therapy.
Awesome. And we are the Coaches Are In. All right. So we announced our first episode that we were going to be reading this book together. And this book is Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto by Tricia Hersey. She is the founder of the NAP Ministry. And this week, we are talking about the preface and the introduction of the book. And then we'll jump into the meat of the book. But there was some good stuff in the preface.
Yeah, and I almost didn't think it. I was reading that part of the book. I'm like, this is only the introduction?
Right. Yes. So, we're going to, I think I'm going to kind of lead this discussion. And I'm going to approach it a little bit differently because this isn't a book with characters or a storyline or anything like that. But it's some good stuff in here so far. So first, ladies, I just want to get your initial impression of the book. Just from reading the preface and the introduction, what are your initial thoughts about the book?
I would say my initial thoughts after starting to read it was I could see that there was work to be done, right? It wasn't, I first went in like not really knowing, just kind of having an idea of what I thought. But I guess my initial impression was I'm going to get done reading this book and I'm going to be compelled to do something based on all of the information that I just read. So that was like just from cracking it open and getting right in. I'm like, there is some work to do on me, and feeling compelled to help other people kind of have this new idea of this perspective.
I think mine is sort of twofold. On the one hand, towards the book, I was just taken aback by Rest and how she framed all of this and packaged it in such a way that I've never thought of rest as it relates to our political landscape, our economic system. I never thought of it that way. So that led me to also, like, every time I'm reading, I'm thinking, wow, this woman took an idea. I know it's not something that you've ever heard of before,
Mm-hmm.
but she took it and worked it and ran it, and it's helping so many people. And so it just caused me to think, we need to, whatever ideas we have, we really need to put it out there in the atmosphere and let God do the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Because who the nap ministry, never heard of it,
Right.
but so glad to be able to be exposed to this reading and to really cause me to think through, like, how I'm guiding my day, rest for myself, and just it that's just my first impression of the book. I was just, by the preface, it was so rich that
Mm-hmm.
you it's hard to read through completely and let's go to the next. No, it's like, let me read through this paragraph and stop
Right.
and just
Right.
think.
Mhm. Listen
So
to it
yeah,
again.
yeah, I was this. It was good. It's just it really causes you to think.
Yes. So my initial impression, I read the preface in one sitting,
Mm.
and I felt like, okay, I might be mad by the time this is over. By the time I finish reading this book, I may be upset and want to fight somebody
Mhm.
because of the way she frames
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
the need for rest.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it is like you both said, just an idea that like we've never heard of. And yes, we're hearing more about rest
Mhm.
Right.
in the last few years, but it still isn't digging as deep as she is in this book. And I think I've had individual conversations with both of you in terms of my worldview these days and how, certain people are treated. And I feel like, this might have me wanting to fight somebody. but, but
Right.
we're gonna restrain because that this is not
Yes.
Mr. Reader. This is not Riri. So
Yes. Yep. Bring it back. Bring it back.
Right. 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 Right.
we'll bring it back. All right. So what I want to do is actually share some of the pieces of the reading that really stood out to me. So I'm actually going to read some sections of the book and just kind of get your raw response to what I've read,
Mhm.
and see how you thought about it. And also, like, for those of us who are viewing who have not gotten their book yet and haven't started reading it yet, I think this will be good for you to get an idea of what the book is really about. So let's see. I'm going to start on page 5 of the preface. It says, I come from a legacy of exhaustion. My maternal grandmother, Aura, the muse of this work, a refugee from Jim Crow terrorism, rested her eyes every day for 30 minutes to an hour in an attempt to connect and find peace. My great grandmother, Rhodey, I am told, stayed up late nightly on her farm in deep Mississippi with a pistol in her apron pocket to creatively solve any problems from the Ku Klux Klan.
Mm.
The reality of our survival from white supremacy and capitalism is deeply shocking to me. I am in awe at what our bodies can hold. We must lighten our loads. Survival is not the end goal for liberation. We must thrive. We must rest.
Well, um, I think the first thing that I think about is how we have pretty much been programmed to
Mm-hmm.
not rest.
Mm-hmm.
And that part makes me think about other places, even in the book, where I'm sure we all had someone who said it. I mean, grandmothers like just pop out when you say, like, I'm
Right.
just resting my eyes. Like, are you asleep?
Mhm.
No, I'm just resting my eyes. But we've gotten so busy
Mm-hmm.
and so far away from the whole idea of needing to rest, because it's been ingrained in us, that we always have to be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you think of it like as a way of protecting yourself from white supremacy, like almost like, okay, I gotta always have my eyes open, like, or whatever's happening, I can't really rest. That's kind of like how I felt. It wasn't really like thinking that there was a need for rest. It was almost like there was a need to not rest, almost like an unrest in so to speak.
Yeah.
And then just taking those moments that we don't even really take today. So it was just thinking that that's where it came from. And if you do any deep study on, like just our history and where we come from and embedded in our DNA, it is obvious that we have been, that's that whole black, strong black woman kind of thing. Like can't rest, can't stop, got to keep working, got to keep pretending everything is okay when it's not. That was kind of powerful. And like you said, it set the tone where, okay, we ain't just going to be talking about you taking a real nap,
right?
or getting some sleep at the end of the day, or not working so hard. But
right.
It's like the whole origin of this idea of how hard we work just cracks it open. And we haven't even finished discussing, like going throughout. So that was kind of like, for me, it was like, wow, this is not really about resting for the day. This is about it's about what you've been taught to do and what you've been accustomed to doing, and how it really is breaking you down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that first sentence is powerful in itself. I come from a legacy of exhaustion, right? And most of us do, right? And I agree. I think the connection that she makes with rest in our history, that's what keeps me coming back, because it's a new way of thinking. The origin of why rest is critical for us, and how, based on capitalism, our bodies were used, right, to further the economy in our history. And honestly, in 2023, based on just her being able to go back to her, her maternal grandmother, and even further, if we're not careful in 2023, which is why I'm glad she wrote this, we will continue the same thing. We will continue this whole work. And I've been just real briefly, just a quick statement. I have been talking a little bit more about neuroplasticity. There's something about rest, and even our brain and the need for rest, the need to shut it down and relax so that we can be on top of our game, right? But we don't have to keep our eyes open, and we don't have to put our hands to the grind, to stay on top in this economic system we're in. We can rest, we can refuel. And so, yeah, I come from a legacy of exhaustion. I'm like, then I just feel like we are trying to create legacy for our own self, right? We want our children's children to be blessed. When she says that, I think to myself, well, then what am I teaching my children? And do I want my children and my children's children to be exhausted, to not understand the importance of rest? That's something that must change. And how can we, in this capitalistic society, how can we change that you can be well off and not have to, or you can live in this society and not have to be exhausted?
Just that word, like how many times do you hear it? I think even just from reading that, I feel like I started to hear the word exhausted more. You know what I mean? Like people around me were like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted. I'm so exhausted." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is what it is."
It's like, I'm not.
This is what we're doing. Like, oh my goodness, I'm never saying that again.
Right.
Yes. But yes, like when you think about the power of words, you don't want to say it but we don't want to not say it so much that we forget that we still may be operating in the state of exhaustion.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
This is not a
Pushing.
thing that you can affirm yourself out of. Right.
Right.
You're going to actually have to take different action to come
It takes
out
work.
of that state of exhaustion.
Yes.
I really tuned in on that. I am in awe at what our bodies can hold. And I just like my immediate response was, like, just because our bodies can hold it doesn't mean it was built to hold it. Yeah.
Say that again for the people in the back. That's good right there.
Just because our bodies can hold it doesn't mean it was built to hold it.
That's good.
And that's what creates that sickness, right? That's what creates being sick and having ailments and diseases and things, because we're pushing our bodies like a machine.
Not built that way.
Like Dr. Malika said, it's the way we've been taught. You got to do more. You got to have more. You got to, like, it's like that hustle mentality. You always got to be doing something and moving. And I could honestly say I am guilty of that, and not necessarily feeling exhausted with even what Dr. Sharita said. Like, maybe I don't even recognize exhaustion. It does not even show up in my life the way I'm expecting it to. Like, just because I don't feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta lay down, I'm so tired. I have built up this resistance against rest. So although my body may be saying it, craving it in different ways, just because I don't feel it, it doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Yeah, I think it shows up though in our, I do think that shows up in our bodies, right? In different ways. I mean, I think sometimes sickness can be attributed to, our DNA, right? But when you move the DNA out of there and just like things that pass down, what we do with our body, how we treat it, lack of rest, constant grind, because that's what social media, it's out there, right? That whole grind call, I got to get my grind on. I have posted things about, I'm on my grind in the past, and I'm thinking I've got to work different. This is causing me I've got to work differently. When I first started reading the book, I read something on, maybe it was LinkedIn, where if you take a 22-minute nap, I don't know why 22, but it was like, take a 22-minute nap. But it coincided with this idea of rest, like turn everything off, rest in the middle of the day.
Right.
And that, I think it's critical. I don't think we think so because we're too conditioned to be productive. How was your day? Productive. Not, you know what, I took a nap for 22 minutes.
And I would laugh at people taking naps. I'd laugh at my husband all the time, talking about, yeah, I gotta go take a nap. I'm like, what? You're wasting your day. Like, why do you want to take a nap? Like, he gets a nap in faithfully. And I'm just like,
yes,
I'm up ready for the next thing. Like, I can't, I said, my bed is for sleeping. I don't go lay down in my bed. Like, it's just, it hit me, just understanding like how you're conditioned to do it that way. And what we are transferring in bad health is doing the same things that everyone else did. So I'm going to pass down bad health because I'm doing all of the things that attribute to that, right? So it's like when we talk about things being, hereditary. Well, it's hereditary because you're doing the same thing that they did. Right. So somebody got to stop the wheel from moving.
Exactly.
Well, that was good.
Yes. All right. So, because I have my little list here of the
okay.
I know
my book is audio, so I don't have my notes.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna try to so I want to get through as many of these as we can. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have one of you respond.
Okay.
To each one, and then if we need to go back and have time at the end, we can. All right, so this next one is, and I'm sure we've at least heard the first part of this statement, maybe not the second part, but the second part is key.
Okay. What page are you on?
Page 6.
Okay.
And she is talking about a conversation with her grandmother. She says, whenever I would inquire if she was sleeping, her response was always the same. Every shut eye ain't sleep. I am resting my eyes and listening for what God wants to tell me.
That's good. That's good.
So which one of you going to respond to
Well, I,
that?
I was just gonna say, I hope Coach Allison doesn't mind. Because that just is so necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Is to me, it's necessary to shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you can't, because I know for me, I pray like, Lord, just show me today. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to da 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 da? Direct my path. I mean, there's just certain things that I say I want God to do, but a lot of times you can't hear that. You can't even sense it if you're constantly going.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because and let's, for just a second, let me take the spiritual side out of it. Sometimes you just get an impression or a thought or an idea, and it's so hard to get that in clarity when you are constantly talking, nowadays scrolling, because what you take in from the scrolling and the talking and the meetings and the this and the that, it now might bump up against what God might be trying to do, or an idea that's just naturally in you to do, right? So I that resonates with me so much, because I think, and also that every eye ain't shut. Okay, come on. Okay. It ain't sleep. Every shut eye ain't sleep.
Right, right.
There is still awareness,
Mm-hmm.
right? But right. But it is important to me. I'm just learning so much about this, the importance of shutting it down and really quieting down my own self. Because for me, I'm an only child, and I can remember getting into the habit of just constantly having things going. I just didn't like the silence. Now I'm older and I realize the value in the silence,
Mm-hmm.
the value in shutting it down. There's so much value in that.
Yes. I wrote down next to this, resting is not always about sleeping. Sometimes it's about receiving.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that is good.
Mhm.
Yes.
All right, Allison, you're up
All
next.
right.
All right, so
I'm
this is
ready.
on page 7. Our collective rest will not be easy. All of culture is collaborating for us not to rest. I understand this deeply. We are sleep deprived because the systems view us as machines, but bodies are not machines. Our bodies are a site of liberation. We are divine, and our rest is divine. There is synergy, interconnectedness, and deep communal healing within our rest movement.
Mm-hmm.
I believe rest, sleep, naps, daydreaming, and slowing down can help us all wake up to see the truth of ourselves. Rest is a healing portal to our deepest selves. Rest is care. Rest is radical.
Mm. Well, that healing portal there,
Mhm.
I think that's what pretty much stood out the most to me um in my work. I think I've always talked about this collective trauma, right? So I never even thought about it in the opposite. So we're all dealing with things that we're all seeing and experiencing collectively, which is continuing to perpetuate it, right? So it's like watching the news and things that we listen to and stuff that we see on social media helps keep that heightened. But just what if the idea of rest and not working your body to the ground and everything was all about work, um, became the space where everyone was on that same, just on that same level in the same manner? It would
Mhm.
be powerful. And just the idea of a healing portal, it's and it's within your own body is how I took it. I'm like,
Mhm.
I harness a healing portal, but I'm
Mhm.
not taking advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the more we look at what's actually happening, the more we will continue to not rest,
Right.
because we'll just want more. We see more. We want to experience more. There was a commercial, I think, or something that I saw. It was it basically was showing how what of your life now, what it would be like in 100 years. And pretty much it was like, nothing you have right now is probably going to be around. The house you live in, if it's still there, somebody else is going to live in it. All those things that you acquired are going to be gone somewhere else. It's like, so we're living for what? It's like getting on that same page of life is more than working your body
Right.
for what on the other side of it. So I love the idea of the healing portal, and just finding ways after coming into this new knowledge of how do I incorporate that in, in my own life, in my own community, and in what I share and teach.
Yes, yes, yes. All right, so now we're going to go to the introduction, and it's the opening statement on the introduction page, which would be page 9. It says, I wish you rest today. I wish you a deep knowing that exhaustion is not a normal way of living. You are enough. You can rest. You must resist anything that doesn't center your divinity as a human being. You are worthy of care.
I grew up on the grind. When I look back, this really made me look back on when I was growing up, and I grew up with my grandparents, so that's a different generation than my parents. My grandmother was always on the grind.
Yeah.
So I wasn't taught to take naps. I wasn't taught that rest, like bedtime, get your rest when you go to bed. Okay.
I think we all had that.
That's it. And there was no nap time. There was no no. It was like, we get up, we got this, we got to iron clothes, we got to cook dinner, we got to that. The weekends were full. And so this idea of self-esteem, how I feel about me, when she talks about you are enough, you are worthy of care. I don't think I knew that. And I don't think I knew that rest, I don't think I attributed getting rest to my self-care. Does that make sense? Like, I go get, thanks to Dr. Sharita, I'm going to get a pedicure. Like the idea of doing some of those things, or maybe I walk more. But the idea of rest, we don't attribute that to self-care. We say, wait a second, you rested. This thing's to be done. You got to go. But we are worthy of rest. We're worthy of thinking of ourselves enough to say, I'm going to unplug from the world for this 20 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour. And that's okay. And I deserve that. And that this is not normal. Exhaustion is not normal.
Right.
That's the radical part. I don't want to go back, but I'm just saying that statement. This is not a normal way. We're not supposed to live like this.
Right.
But historically, this is all we know. History says our community, that's what we were bred for. That's what somebody told us, what you are born for. And we have to really, really rethink and rewire our brain when it comes to what contributes to my worth and exhaustion, and knowing that I finished my day and I'm tired, which means I was productive, which means that's great. That we need to rewire from that, rewire ourselves, rewire our brain, because that's not normal. It's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Page 12. Our worth is not connected to how much we produce. I see Dr. Malika and her phone was acting up again. Our worth is not connected to how much we produce. We ignore our body's need to rest, and in doing so, we lose touch with spirit.
Mm-hmm. That kind of ties in a lot of the things that were already said. It's sort of like you lose touch with your spirit because you're not hearing or receiving from God.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still that whole idea of being worthy of it. Like, why is being worthy of rest or doing so much? Why is your worth connected to what you do? And we see that in in everything we do, even if we're not talking about it in the sense of resting, but we feel like our worth is connected to what we do, how much we do. So we need to be able to say, I get up at 5 a.m. and I do this and I cook and I clean and I go to work and I come home and I like, so there's this sense of worth attached to the doing and not enough time being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how do you connect with spirit? How do you connect with your spirit? How do you connect with God? How do you recharge? Where, where are you being fueled?
Right. Right.
You're not. So it just shows that something so simple that you don't even consider breaks down so many other areas of your life that you were created to operate in that way, right? So if you're saying God first, how many people say that?
Right.
But it's almost like, so if you're a busybody running around doing all this kind of stuff, not allowing yourself to rest, are you really honoring God? Are you really hearing and knowing what to do next? It just sounds, just even listening to that or reading the book makes me think of how the world is so noisy as it is,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no space for rest unless you take it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's almost like it has to be a forceful thing, an intentional thing, because
Right.
it's not just gonna come.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, it takes me back to a conversation I had with our resident mental health therapist this season, Seneca, Coach Sen. She was saying how in her work with Black women entrepreneurs, how she would have to give her clients permission to take a break,
Mm-hmm.
to go on vacation, to do some sort of rest, some form of rest, right?
Right.
Because they didn't feel like they could.
Right.
Yes.
But her saying, like, literally, like, you can do this. It is okay for you to do this. Release something in them that allowed them enough freedom, to take a day off and like not do anything, right? Or to do the
Like, I can't do that.
to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's conditioning that we're not really aware of until someone brings it to our attention.
Right.
And I think
Right.
oftentimes we're resistant to it when they do.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
it's like, well, like, I can rest later. I need to do this now. Like, I'm trying to beat this goal. I have a deadline to do this. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. We don't stop to do it until the doctors tell us we have to.
Ooh,
I was
yes.
just gonna say that until you get sick and you can't,
Your
then
physical
it's like
body
you get
just stops.
revelation. Yeah, it's like, no, I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting for that.
And then you get through that, and then you go back right to doing it.
The same thing.
You're like, okay, I feel better now. I can get up and do everything again.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you've wired yourself that way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
It's more comfortable to, if that's what you do, it's like, it's just comfortable. And then it goes back to work.
Yes.
If I'm not doing something, I don't feel
Not productive.
I'm feeling useless. Yeah, it's like I'm learning.
I mean, that's how I feel. Not necessarily useless, but I think I feel like my time could be used better than doing nothing.
But are you not doing right? That's a good point, because that's real. So then it's like, but I am doing something. I'm resting. I'm refilling.
That's an action verb.
Yes. We gotta make it. We have to make it that, because that's how I say. I'm like, what do I need to do? What do I need to rest for? Like I'm fine doing what I'm doing. I enjoy
Right.
what I'm doing. And that's a trick too, because you
Mhm.
can really love what you do and how you move and all the things.
Right.
But hearing this perspective can be a game changer
Right.
if it resonates with you. If it resonates with you, this could be a game changer because it could literally change your life, not just from the physical standpoint, but understanding all the things, all the benefits that
Mhm.
come along with the rest and not giving into the society that we were born into and taken advantage of for doing.
Hmm.
It's time. It's our time. It's almost like, okay, here we go. It's my time.
Yes.
Mhm.
Generationally.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So here's the next one on page 15. Capitalism has cornered us in such a way that we only can comprehend two options. One, work at a machine level from a disconnected and exhausted place, or two, make space for rest and space to connect with our highest selves while fearing how we will eat and live. This
Ooh,
rigid binary, combined with the violent reality of poverty, keeps us in a place of sleep deprivation and constant hustling to survive.
wow.
I cut out. Is this
Pretty
on
deep.
me?
I
Or
don't
is this
remember.
Coach Allison? I don't know.
I think
But
I had to take over when you had the little blank moment. You were resting. I'm not even mad at you. You needed to rest. It's all right. So yeah, you ready? You refreshed?
yeah, I'm refreshed. Okay. So it's funny at the end of that paragraph, I underlined keeps us in a place of sleep deprivation and constant hustling to survive.
Mhm.
Um, and there's there's so much we could say about this
I
because
know, girl.
it's just but that stuck out to me. Keeps us in a place of sleep deprivation and constant, and I think it's more of the constant hustling to survive. When I think about this whole connection with how she connects capitalism, white supremacy, slavery, I think about Black women and our role throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have always hustled. Always been, we have always had to
Mhm.
because of the broken family, right?
That's
Because of our
good.
families being broken up, not by choice,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Historically, women have had to keep going, right? Children ripped away. We've got to keep going. We
Mm-hmm.
Right.
got to feed somebody else's child. We got to
Wow.
work to make sure we live and survive. And again, it goes back to, I think, as Black women, um, we open ourselves enough to get the creative ideas and work the business and start the business and go to the trainings. I'm talking about 2023 now. We are working the full-time job, working, creating. There's creativity inside of us, and we are constantly doing. But that is, when we think of it deep down, it's because I want to come out of
Yeah.
what historically what we were in. I
Right.
Mm-hmm.
want to be wealthy. I want to be here. I want to have an ease of life. I want that. And I think that that results in us working, creating, doing, building, for us and other people. And it's just a constant hustle.
Mhm.
And so we have to be so careful and so mindful of that. That's why we've got to be intentional about rest. We have to
Mhm.
be intentional because the grind, the hustle is, we're not intentional. We're on autopilot.
Oh yes.
Right.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
the auto
Right.
response.
That's
Mm-hmm.
our auto response based on our history as a people, I believe.
Mhm.
So now it's like we're getting this new revelation. It's like, okay, but I've got to build this in. I've got to be intentional to the point where it's such a radical thing to do that people will look at me like I'm crazy, or people will look at us when we say, I've got to rest, but I'll be right back. That
Mhm.
even when they look at us like we're crazy, it's going to be okay because we've got this revelation.
Mhm.
And we know that this is good for us,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. I just have to add real quick. It makes me think about when we think in terms of capitalism, as a Black woman, we've been taught that we have to work harder to get to or elevate above the levels of other people, other groups. So
Yes.
that is a part of the whole capitalism system as well. It's like, okay, you're gonna work, but you gotta work twice as hard. You want that promotion, you gotta do more, you gotta do better, you gotta, put in those extra and do all this kind of stuff to make yourself, which is directly tied to the worth part. Okay, that's it.
It is.
I'm
And it,
only, I'm only worthy on this job if I do twice as much as the person that's not a Black woman.
right,
So I
right.
just keep going.
Which says to us that okay, now this is,
Is this the last question?
I
It's
know.
not.
I just have to say this one thing because it makes me think, Lord, how much am I giving to you, my success, my elevation to you, and how much am I putting in my hands?
Mhm.
Is it a 60-40? Is it a 70-30? You understand what I'm saying?
Well, that's a
Like,
great opener for the next thing we're
let's
going
go
to
there. Let's
We listening. We're listening.
All right. So it says sleep deprivation is a public health issue and a spiritual issue. It is a spiritual issue for a few reasons. This is page 18.
Okay.
We have been trained to believe that everything we accomplish is because of our own pushing alone. This is false because there is a spiritual dimension that exists in all things and in everything we do. To understand that we are spiritual beings navigating life in a material world opens us to the possibilities of rest as a spiritual practice. Our entire living is a spiritual practice. Much of our resistance to rest, sleep, and slowing down is an ego problem. You believe you can and must do it all because of our obsession with individualism and our disconnection to spirituality. Nothing we accomplish in life is totally free of the influence of spirit and community. We do nothing alone.
All right, Coach Allison, I know this is your part. Go ahead. I'm just
No. I mean, look, you said you started off. I'll come in later.
Because I feel like we really have to think then, how much are we doing and how much are we giving God and trusting God to do for us? So this hustle, this grind, that is capitalism. That's the world system set up. Right. That's the world
Materialism,
system set up.
yes.
Yeah. So
Take spirit out.
isn't
I'm
that
doing
right? I am too. But I'm thinking, isn't that opposite? That's opposite.
Mhm.
I can do all things, be successful, live healthy, breathe, help others, be well. I can do all things, but it's through Christ
Mhm.
is where I get my strength.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really hear from him unless I seek him first.
And rest.
And that's part of the rest. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like shutting it down, quiet it down, hear from him. Okay, let me just chill. Let me just turn the lights off and light a candle, whatever you do, and just let me sit in silence for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And we get uncomfortable with that because number one, it's like if I tell you I'm going to shut it down and hear from God, if I don't hear from God in like 2 seconds,
he ain't talking right now.
he ain't talking.
I'll come back.
I got to pick up my phone and then I see a post that says a scripture and I'm like, oh, he's speaking. No, shut that down.
You telling the truth.
You know, he wants to. So that, yes, we are not this whole thing of grind, this whole thing of rest and rest in different ways. I like how you said it, Dr. Shrita. It's different ways. A lot of what we want out of life the blessings, the wealth, the this, the that, the legacy we want to leave our kids. Listen, if we don't connect with God, who knows where we're supposed to be and orders our steps, who can give you the strength to do what you have to do, what are you doing it for? Because you're not like, what's it for? To just keep up with the world system that was created for the world.
Yeah. Look, oh, you get a little frustrated over there, girl. You like,
this is good. It's good.
You know what it is that I take from it all is it's a great reminder of how far potentially we have moved from the spiritual practice alone. Like whether you want to call it rest, whatever you want to call it, we've moved so far away from the spiritual part of who we really are to gain the things outside of what's in us. So I think that's kind of how, if I wrapped it all up, I would say it just shows us how far are we really from, the spiritual practice of, like of how we were created. Like how much we can endure is a lot less than the people that came before us, our ancestors. Think of the things that they dealt with. We could not deal with any of that stuff today.
Oh, Lord.
And they had real ritual practices spiritually. Like that's what got them through. And we want to do all this other stuff, and we don't even have half of the pressures and the life that they had to live. And it's almost like we owe it to them.
Right. And we owe it to the next generation.
Yeah, you all have heard me talk about operating in alignment and flow.
Right.
But alignment doesn't come without communication, right, and connection. And if we get in alignment, it allows God to direct our paths in such a way that we don't have to work as hard to get the things that we want.
Right.
Yeah, you said it.
Right.
Wrap that up with a bow.
Yep. You ain't gonna have to sell yourself. God will introduce you to the people you need to know.
That's good.
Let me see. So liberation, page 25. Liberation and oppression cannot occupy the same space.
Yeah. I automatically think of poverty, which was within the last question. It's almost like, they're not. So you're either doing one or the other is what it is, basically. So if we're not liberated, we're oppressed.
Right.
And as much as we declare that we are not out of our mouths, everything that we're doing says the opposite of that. So it's like, most of us who this message resonates with can kind of understand if you're you're basically not living what you're saying. You're in contradiction with yourself. So you got to pick one or the other. Either you're going to be oppressed or you're going to be liberated. And true liberation, from what we're understanding and learning now, comes from the whole idea of rest in a whole different way. I won't be free. I won't be free. I won't be liberated.
I love that.
Yes. And some of it is just not like, yes, the society. There is oppression there, right? Not the same as it was 100 years ago, 50 years ago, but it's still there, right?
Yeah.
But because we have basically acclimated to that way of being, we have added to societal oppression, self-oppression. But we don't look at what we're doing to ourselves. It's what the man is doing. What the world.
Right. Someone else is still oppressing us, but we have not understood that we are oppressing ourselves.
Yes.
Woo, child.
In the name of keeping up.
Right.
Or not being broke.
Yes. So talk about that one.
Right.
It's like, I can't be broke.
All right. So I'm gonna skip over a couple, but there's two that I definitely want to get in. It's really 3, but I'm gonna make it 2.
Well, you know what? We could do the last question in on a post, like
Let's
engage in a post.
good. Good.
That's good.
Um, all right, so that one I'm gonna say for the post.
Okay.
All right, so I trust the creator and my ancestors, page 29. I trust the creator and my ancestors to always make space for my gifts and talents without needing to work myself into exhaustion.
Can you type that in the chat?
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to, again, for us, it's God. I mean, trusting God to open up doors. I mean, here's the deal. We're wonderfully made. I quote that scripture all the time, but it's the truth. Like, we don't even tap into what does fearfully mean? Like, we don't even tap in to the greater, I think, of who we are. And I think that, God created us fearfully, wonderfully. We're made in his image and in his likeness. We talk about how great he is, but we don't talk about how great we are because we are made like him. And so everything we need is already lined up. It's already there. It's in the atmosphere. It's there. And I truly believe that it's like he'll make that space. He'll every gift and talent in us, he'll make that space for us. He'll make room for everything that we need, every person we need to meet, every door that needs to open. I believe if you're seeking after him and connected, he'll do that. It's all in us.
Right. You just have to believe it without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, and stay connected. We talk about stay connected. Stay connected. Listen, you better stay connected to the one who made you. Who else are you you know what I'm saying? Like we don't
have time. We're too busy.
I know. It's like I don't but I think it's I don't know who's watching tonight, and I hope that it's a wide range of age groups. If you're younger than us, I'll just say us. People don't know how old we are, honey. But if you're younger, in your 30s and 40s, 30s, 20s, however, don't wait until you get older to get this revelation.
Right.
This is when I was 20, this would not have made sense to me because I was definitely on my grind in a different way. Get this knowledge because this is it'll change your life. No matter how old you are, but for our young, it'll change your life in your 30s. If you get this idea of rest, if you get this idea, you don't have to grind, that God will center you and he'll put you where you need to be. This is good.
I think they likely have embraced this probably a lot better than we have. I think even if they're not understanding it from this perspective, I don't think that a lot of younger people really have this whole idea of like hustle, grind. They're like, gets greater later. I'm gonna do this now and I'm gonna do that later. Maybe there's not even this immediate like need for grind.
Right.
But if they're doing that, make sure that they're doing it in the way of what they're actually honoring and creating it as a spiritual practice and not just, feeling like I don't have to do anything to get, where I want to be.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So this last one is a whole paragraph.
All right. We're listening.
What page are we on?
Page 29.
Oh, okay.
When we can begin to tap into the deep vessel of who we truly are, so many things would end about oppression. I believe the powers that be don't want us rested because they know that if we rest enough, we are going to figure out what is really happening and overturn the entire system. Exhaustion keeps us numb, keeps us zombie-like, and keeps us on their clock. Overworking and the trauma of burnout continues to degrade our divinity. Once we know and remember we are divine, we will not participate and allow anything into our hearts and minds that is not loving and caring. We would treat ourselves and each other like the tender and powerful beings we are. When I say sleep helps you wake up, it helps you wake up to the truth of who and what you are. And the system doesn't want that. It would crumple under the weight of this power.
Didn't I just say that after this week I'm gonna have work? I'm gonna
You
have work.
didn't say I was gonna fight somebody.
I'm like, this is it. Like, no, let me tell you, well, because I don't have the book, but I took the note, and this is really this is what stood out to me, and even understanding why our power seems to be diminished against that type of system in the world that we live in, that we contribute to, that we participate in. And what's crazy about it is very subliminal. It's not like this is what you're going to do, right? Like, it's not like you're going to go out here, you're going to work 12 hours a day, you're going to not take a break. You know, we don't even rest on Sundays no more. But the trauma of burnout, that's what stood out to me. And even thinking that we don't really know who we are. We have to be honest to saying, and if this in fact is what we believe to be true, or we find truth in what she's sharing, which I do, there's that's where the disconnection is we have forgotten who we are, although we say we know who we are, and we claim to be, you know, a group of people who is going, you know, taking over and doing things in a certain way. But I think if we can be honest, we can say that we have really forgotten who we are, because we've settled in the trauma of burnout. And when you're in a pattern of traumatic events and situations and circumstances, at some point, I don't know which one of you said it earlier, but you get to a place where you don't even realize it. We don't even know that that burnout is a trauma.
Right.
But we're continuing and we're perpetuating this trauma of burnout by participating in it. Because if we knew how powerful we were against that, we would do things differently, and then hence have different outcomes. May not necessarily be overnight, but we've seen some things, you know, be able to change, but we have to be willing to stand up against it and find a community or create a community in what this is, you know, what this is saying. It's just like, wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because you think about, I think, like when people decide they're going to change their diet, right? And it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna stop eating meat, or like I'm gonna stop doing something, right? And if they don't find immediate benefit, like something noticeable, tangible that happens quickly, they feel like it's not working.
Yes.
And I think it's like, okay, well, I took a day off and I just got beat behind in my work.
Right.
Right. And it's this thing where you have to do things repeatedly for your body to recognize that there is a change in the pattern. There is a shift happening. And sometimes the first benefit may not be so tangible or physical. It may be like something that was kind of underlying happening. Right. So like you could have been heading towards a breakdown.
Right.
But because you started to maybe it's a daily nap. Maybe it is literally like, I'm actually not going to work on the weekends too.
Right.
I'm take Saturdays and Sundays off. Or I'm just going to start with Saturdays. That may be enough to keep something negative from happening that was on its way to happen. Right. And that may not be something you physically recognize, right? But then the longer you continue the pattern disrupt, it's like, okay, well, she must be serious about it.
Right.
What you doing, girl? They look great.
Start not just stopping some stuff now, we can start reversing some things,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
That's
Um,
good. That's a good word.
Yes.
but you sometimes
Reverse.
you got to be consistent enough to let the benefit show up.
Manifest.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, and that's like what you said, Dr. Malika, was like if this is hereditary,
Mm-hmm.
what Dr. Sharita just said is that's a way to invoke our power is
Right.
okay, we don't have to keep having these diseases because I'm stopping here. So now I'm not giving birth to that. And
Right.
then, you'll learn your children and your children's children will learn by the habits that you've created without
Right.
even saying, okay, this is what you got to do. You got to rest because of this. They'll see you operating in that. And yeah, reversing some things means the next people that are born, the next babies that are born won't be born with that thing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's deep.
That's good.
Now, even changing that, it's not even a pattern yet because they may not be here yet, but how you interact with the next generation on things like this, it has to be so very intentional. Even if you change things for yourself, you still have the memory of the trauma, right? So it's like, whether it's, well, I was a child and I didn't get to do anything, so I'm going to make sure my kids can do all the activities.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
Right.
a
Well,
good
I did all these activities and it provided all these opportunities. So I'm going to make sure my kids do all the activities too. Right.
Right. Right.
So your children shouldn't have to wait until they're 20, 30, 40, 50 to get a revelation of rest.
Right.
Right.
Like I raised my children with I'm bored. That's okay. It's okay to be bored.
Right.
Right.
And I'm kind of like, you better enjoy it now while you can.
You ain't always gonna be bored.
Right.
You'll be like, darn, I wish I was bored.
Yeah, so it's just like, and when you think about that, boredom comes because you feel like you need to be doing something.
It's false boredom.
It is.
It's okay to just not do anything sometimes.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So we have to be more intentional about making sure we don't pass the trauma on, and that we don't, because we could do it unintentionally.
Right.
Just by thinking that we're providing more opportunities for our kids. Like all of these activities are so great for them. And some of them are. They don't need to do everything at the same time all year round.
And I'm guilty of that, but
if they sleep late during the summer. Job is to go to school, right? And school is on break. It's okay.
it's okay to rest.
Is up at 5:30 in the morning, out the house at 6:15 to catch the bus. That's a long day for him. He gets home at 4:30. That's longer than a regular work day.
That's longer than I was about to say. Yes, longer than the 9 to 5.
Yes,
and then they got to come home and do homework.
We're programming them early.
Exactly. And that's not. He doesn't play sports, so that's not even. He's staying after school. No, he's getting out of school at 3 o'clock when they dismiss, and it takes his bus till 4:30 to get him here. It's a long day. So when now I don't typically let him go past 10 o'clock on a Saturday, but I recognize that. I'm like, he's up now before I'm up most of the time.
Right.
Wow.
So, and it's just like, like he's got a 40+ hour week job, and he needs to rest. I don't tell him I said that.
Yes, I won't. I'll give you time to tell him.
But it's just recognizing that.
It is.
And then there's the emotion, because we're talking about physical rest for the most part, with a hint of spiritual rest. But there's other types of rest as well, and you need emotional breaks and mental breaks and things as well. You got to figure out where you need the rest and when you need it, so you're taking the proper kind of rest.
Right.
And being able to identify which one. Yeah.
If you're emotionally exhausted, that nap may help, but it's not going to be enough.
Right.
You get the level of recovery that you really need.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, and that's changing that pattern too, right? So going to bed at 1 o'clock when you got to get up at 6. It's like, wait a minute, your body hasn't even gone through a full cycle,
Yeah.
of rest. Um, yeah, this is good.
I
Yeah.
know. And we just getting started.
Just get started. We didn't even
We didn't even get to chapter
We
1.
didn't even get to chapter 1.
right.
Next time.
Ooh,
Yes. Next
y'all in for it.
time.
Be ready. Make sure you get your rest before you come back.
Yes. And grab your copy of Rest is Resistance, a manifesto by Tricia Hersey. You can get it at your favorite bookstore.
Mhm.
Read the preface and introduction, then read part 1 and part 2 for our next book discussion. Part 1 is Rest and part 2 is Dream. And I think, let's see, I don't want to say the wrong things. I'm pulling up my calendar really quickly.
Is that the date?
Yes. November 20th should be the next book discussion. So join us. Read it with us. If you want to jump on and be part of the discussion, just reach out to us via social media or the contact form at thecoachesrn.com. We'd love to have you join us for this conversation. Now you're going to be a little bit disappointed because I did not load up the outro video.
We can do it.
This is what happens when you go live. So we will not be able to sing you out this episode, but I know the tune is in your head, so just sing it.
Yes,
that's right. But we can say we are out.
Yes.
Join us in the chat. Remember, we got one more question that we're going
to post.
Jump in.
Yes. All right. So remember to like, subscribe, and share. And for now, the coaches are
out.
Good night, ladies.
Good night.
Good night.